There we go. Welcome everybody. Um, so excited to see you all. It's been a really fun time for us announcing this program. And the main purpose of this session is going to be introducing the Focus Communities program, getting into what it exactly it'll look like, and especially supporting religious communities to discern whether or not you want to apply. So over the next hour, I'm going to try to give a little bit of an overview as to like who we are, what we're doing, why we started this program, what it entails. And then we're going to hear from Joan Gallagher, Sister of St. Joseph of Brentwood, and Jessie Rathburn, who's with the community of Loretto, and whose birthday it is. About like you'll hear from two people who are members of communities about their experience. And then from there, I'm hoping to have about 20 minutes of just like Q&A. So please, especially those of you who are deciding whether to apply, this time is for you. If you're wondering whether this program is for your community. Sound good? Okay, so welcome. We are really excited to be jumping into kind of a next leg of our work by really honing in on this Focus Community program, working deeply with communities to figure out what land justice looks like in your context and in your own property plan. So just like a tiny recap of who we are the Nuns and Nuns Land Justice Project. We work with religious communities and movement partners to create land transitions rooted in ecological and racial healing. We've been doing this work for about 2 years. Many of you have been to our webinars and other offerings that we've created, really to try to move forward this idea and this work of land justice. Land justice is the centering of racial and ecological justice in decisions about how land is loved and used and governed. Here at the Land Justice Project, when we talk about it, to us, that means 3 things all at the same time: protecting land from development and extraction, regenerating the health of land, and expanding equity of land, that relationship and access and control and governance of land, to people who have been historically dispossessed of land, especially Black and Indigenous communities and communities of color. So basically, we find ourselves in this moment in which many religious communities are asking, what's the future of our land going to be? In the next 5, 10, 20 years, there are lands that we will not necessarily be the future stewards of. Some of those communities are coming to completion. Some of them are not, but they are divesting of some land. And so we are a learning community. We come together, and in the bottom right here, you can see some of the case studies and ways that we unpack what are other ways of thinking about the future of these lands that are going to prioritize the kind of healing that we want to see. Over 1,200 sisters and associates and staff, co-members, et cetera, have joined us from over 110 communities. And that's an old stat. So I think we're closer to 1,300 and probably more than 43 states. And in doing that, so we offer these webinars, and we're sort of trying to nurture this cross-community conversation about how can this moment of discerning the future of Catholic land really be a powerful healing moment. And we really realize that there's work to be done together. There are ways that we can go deeper than just being in webinars together and kind of studying in this light touch online way. For a lot of communities, that's what makes sense to them. But there are a growing number of communities that say, okay, we've got it. We understand. We want the future of our land to interrupt this history of harm and violence against the earth and people of color. And we want to prioritize a future plan that is rooted in land justice. So how do we do that? How can the Land Justice Project support us? What do we do together? And it was really from that question of like, how can we do more together that the focus communities program was created. Here's Joan, front and center. You'll hear from her later. And so the way that we think about this program is we're creating a community of practice across religious communities across the country that want to create new stories on sacred lands, that are actively saying, how do we incorporate land justice in the future of this land? How can we find future stewardship partners that speak to this vision of land justice? So what that looks like, what that's looked like this first year was 7 communities who came together once every 6 weeks on community calls, and who participated in sort of like deeper study and education of an exploration into this work of land justice, and really began sharing the journey together, problem solving together, walking together toward trying to move their communities toward this vision. So what this entails, what does it mean to be a focused community? This is a 2-year program. And the first thing that we really focus on doing together is immersive learning. We are, studying different examples of land justice in our contexts. We're building relationship across communities, kind of helping strengthen each other, and seeing this moment not just as all of these isolated, difficult decisions within a community, but a chance for women religious to act collectively, to move land to frontline communities and grassroots efforts to heal and regenerate the earth, to reclaim their cultural practices, and to build food justice and habitat restoration into their local communities. And so, communities getting to share this journey together across charism and geography is really important. And then we also support the relationship building with potential partners and stewards in your area. This is a picture of a site visit that our whole cohort took this May to Full Circle Healing Farm, which is run by Martise Scales and his wife, Amy. And they're trying to build not just accessible, healthy food through regenerative farming in Milwaukee, but be a hub of training and belonging for other BIPOC farmers in the Milwaukee area. And then we explore concrete models. We unpack, what the work of land justice can look like in 1,000 different experiments and models. This is a picture of a workshop we gave on something called a cultural conservation easement. So this is kind of a reworking of the conservation easement to give Indigenous tribes whose ancestral land the land it is access in perpetuity to their land in order to be able to practice ceremony and traditional stewardship. And last, we give tailored technical assistance. This means when the rubber hits the road and you're starting to explore what this could look like, we have a network of lawyers and real estate folks and conservation folks that are working specifically in the context of land justice that can come alongside your community, your CFO, the consultants you're working with, your lawyer, and add some really specific expertise in the work to see what's possible. So concretely, what does this mean? What does it actually look like to be a focused community? It means it means that you'll be in this process for 2 years. The first year, you're going to form a land justice team in your community of 3 to 5 people and go through kind of a core curriculum. We're going to learn together. We're going to create a really solid foundation of learning and understanding what is the land system we're working with? What do we accept sort of as status quo? How can we understand the connections between property, climate, and race? And what are examples of more healing opportunities? We're going to slowly and steadily move through a curriculum in the first year, all together as a cohort. With that cohort, you'll get on calls every 6 weeks. We do them on the equinox and solstices and the cross quarters when that's on a weekday, or the closest weekday to it, if not, so that we can unpack what we're learning and keep deepening together, pushing each other and sharing our experience. We get together in person for a few days in May. That'll be the first week of May. The dates are still to be tweaked, but it'll be the first week of May for sure. We will come to your community and work with your land justice team to create a multi-day workshop for your entire community to start learning about what this is. And you'll get that tailored support and accompaniment. You'll have a coach who's a member of the land justice team who's going to be checking in with you, supporting you, identifying roadblocks, making sure that workshop is tailored to your specific needs. And we'll also be connecting you with other partners, like we showed. Just a couple more like, oops, no, a couple more images of what this work can look like. This is the kind of community that we're trying to build. This was many of us in person in May. And something that's not mentioned, but really critical to what we do is this is also about celebrating the work that we're doing together, giving each other encouragement. This is for the sisters and the members and co-members and staff and associates who really want to try something innovative, who sometimes come up against boundaries in your community and are trying to find the ways to make it practical and make it work and bring people along. And that can be a really lonely road sometimes. And so the Focus Communities program is also a way to come together as change makers inside of religious communities to nourish each other in that work. And then ultimately, the goal is that by the end of 2 years, you're coming out of this experience with a new story and a new vision for the legacy of your land and community. And I'll just, somebody recently said, legacy makes it sound like this is only an option for communities coming to completion. And I just want to knock that rumor off the table, or that myth. But this is a legacy for land that whatever your community's future, we can create a new legacy of the land that you may be getting ready to let go of, and ensure that it's going toward a future of climate justice and resilience. And that's the work that we're about doing. That second year will be less of a structured curriculum, and that's when at the end of the first year, we're going to work with you to figure out what does your goal, what does the particular context of focus communities look like for you and for your community, for the land you're working with. And that can look a lot of different ways. So from there, year 2 is going to be really hooking you up with the right tailored support, continuing to build local partnerships and supporting that process, walking alongside you and all of that. So year 2 is like a little bit more custom built, I would say. And here are some examples of what it might look like at the end of 2 years. Every community is going to be on its own timing and its own path. And we by no means expect that every community is going to make a major decision in 2 years or transfer their land. So land justice and a concrete story and vision for your land, it might look like you've successfully transferred the land. You've found a new group of regenerative stewards, and you're transferring or have begun the process of transferring access and governance of that land. Or maybe it looks like you're passing a resolution at chapter that says, you know what, we're prioritizing future owners of this land that are doing regenerative work, that are from a historically dispossessed community. Or this last bullet point, you're preparing a resolution or a vote at chapter or assembly, and maybe this is a situation where the land isn't farmable, or it's whatever, you've already got a buyer lined up, but you're going to say, you know what, we're going to give a percentage of income from the sale to a BIPOC collective that's looking for land in this region. Or it might be applying some of these newer tools, like I referred to earlier, the cultural conservation or cultural use easement. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. That's what we're here for. And we kind of explore these possibilities together. But mostly this is really about creating a community to build education and awareness of creative options, and to build the will and the courage and excitement and support to do something new together. I'm going to talk really quick about how to apply. We we, first of all, I'm going to jump to this last bullet point, which is this whole process centers around supporting a land justice team in your community. 3 to 5 people who really want to kind of do the day-to-day work of moving this forward. Oftentimes, it might be someone who's already on a land and buildings committee, or your Laudato Si Action Platform committee, or a member of leadership who's charged with figuring out the future of this or that property. So it's people who are kind of like already wanting to do the work and are excited themselves about bringing land justice into the scope of possibility for what options get on the table for your community. We're working with communities who are engaging in property planning for the future of the land beyond the community's stewardship. So this is for communities that are trying to figure out what the future of their land is going to look like beyond their stewardship. There are great ways to build out access on your property if you're planning on continuing to live there for many more decades. But this is really focusing on communities that know their land might be changing hands in the future, and they want to do that in the way that's most aligned with their values. And last, we prioritize communities whose leadership team is actively supportive of this work. So once you find your team, this is what's kind of expected of you. If you want to join this, we're looking for that land justice team to join our group calls with our cohort every 6 weeks. We want everyone to come to a majority of calls. So no one's going to get kicked out when you have a meeting conflict or anything like that, but you're committing to showing up and participating in this cohort. You're going to have about 3 to 5 hours a month of webinars or assignments. I can give a couple examples of assignments when we get to the Q&A, but it's all work that's created to support the work you're already doing to figure out the future of the land. It's not learning for learning's sake. We are creating an applied learning experience that's going to support the decisions you already have to make anyway. And then you'll be hosting a workshop that we will come and give for your whole community. We strongly recommend, but do not require, that your team includes one member of elected leadership at least. We find that having that integration right off the bat is really important. So if you're getting your team together, you're feeling excited about this, the next steps, as you will see on our website, are to watch this intro, which will go way deeper into why land justice matters, why it's important, and kind of create a foundation for you and your team to apply together. And then you apply, and it's a questionnaire of about 10 questions. It'll take 1 to 2 hours, and from there we will reach out with next steps that might include a discernment conversation with Brenna and myself. We are really excited to be creating new stories on these sacred lands with women religious, in addition to just generally being amazing people who have changed my life. Sisters are one of the leading edges of the largest private property owner in the world, the Catholic Church. And so we're doing this program because what we do and the decisions that are made really matter. They matter, and they can change a much bigger culture than I think we're even aware. And so we want this to ignite not only the moving forward and deepening in your own community, but the sense of collective action and collective impact that women religious can make beyond the silos of community to community. So at this point, I'd like to invite Jesse and Joan. Let me bring you on here. So Jesse and Joan, you are both part of focus community teams in your communities. And I thought it'd be fun just to share a little bit of your experience with the group, since you're coming as a participant. So maybe if just in a few minutes each, you could share what community you're from, what had you sign on to this, and what's been your experience so far. And let's just start with Jessie because it's her birthday.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. I am Jessie Rathburn, and I am a co-member of the Loretto community, and I also live and work here at our mother house in Loretto, Kentucky. I'm the Earth Education and Advocacy Coordinator for the community. And so, several of us have been sort of traveling alongside Nuns and Nuns, like from the beginning of Nuns and Nuns, since before the land justice team was a thing. And so we were really excited when Nuns and Nuns started this new aspect to them. And so we signed on to this for a number of reasons. One is that we've been working on these areas, ecological healing and racial healing, for many years, but sort of like in silos in our community. We have a reparations group, we have a farm and land committee, we have the Loretto Earth Network, we have all of these different groups working on their discrete tasks. And some of them, we've done really great things, like we closed on a conservation easement covering most of our property. So 654 acres are permanently protected. Our farm here has really transitioned to regenerative practices. And so there are lots of good things going on, but just in pockets. And so one thing that's happened as a result of us being part of this group is exactly what Brittany was saying they hoped would happen, is that our community has come together and really has a more holistic framework for our efforts now, so that it's not just one group is working on one task and moving that task forward, but we're really looking at how do we as a community approach ecological and racial healing all the time in everything, because that's everybody's job. And also, we have really deepened in our understanding of the role that our particular community has played throughout the course of history. We know about colonization, we know about enslavement, but seeing, like, it's almost like a mirror has been held up to ourselves, and we've been allowed to see our role right within that broader landscape, that broader context, and especially to trace the stories between our properties across the country. And that's just something that's happened recently and has been incredibly powerful for our team. And so tracing, like, colonization across the nation, and then colonization of, as Loretto has participated in that unwillingly and unknowingly in many respects, but from Kentucky to Kansas to New Mexico to El Paso to Colorado, has been really, really powerful for us. So it's helped us tie our own story together, and it's helped with those internal conversations about why we do this. Also, I'll just say, it's time bound and it holds us accountable. So, like, we're not just stuck in the loop of having conversations endlessly, but it's also within that context of, we have these people for 2 years. And so we want to get as far as we can in these processes while we have access to this excellent faculty and all of this support. It's also taken us out of our Loretto bubble and connected us with all of these other women religious communities who we had connections to before, sure, but now we're in this together. And it's really repositioned our understanding of our efforts, that it's not just us, that we are doing this alongside all of these other communities and with these other communities to move it forward. Brittany, I feel like I could go on for much longer, and I have no idea how long I've been talking.
This is a great start. And I am gonna just pick up and highlight one thing that Jessie talked about when she's talking about like understanding the history of the land, like the specific lands that Loretto has. You just had your presentation with Intermill Consulting, right? So one of our technical partners is a legal researcher, and she does a study of your actual deed and what the history of that deed is, with respect to, like, were there treaties with indigenous nations on that land? When and how were they broken? How did this land become, land that was owned by the state and then given or sold to white settlers? So, like, we make really concrete like the understanding of the context we're working in first, of like, what is the story of this land that we don't know? And how do we move from there to the story of its future and make sure that it's a healing and regenerative one? So that's just a specific example of like part of that year-long curriculum is like getting a free research deep dive into exactly what the history of your own land is in ways that are really hard to know how to figure out unless you're kind of expert. So I just wanted to pull that out as like one specific thing that you'll see in the sample curriculum in the info pack. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Joan. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Jesse. Probably what Jesse said, I could just say ditto, but then frame it for the Sisters of St. Joseph on Brentwood, Long Island. And I think, you know, we very much like the Loretto community have been have committees in the congregation who have been moving our direction that we have set forth periodically. And again, it was like, all right, you're taking care of that, you're doing that, you're doing that. And we've had outside companies come and help us evaluate our resources and what can we do with them and everything. And even I was part of, it was a handful of Sisters of St. Joseph, some Dominican sisters who got together one summer and said, you know, what are religious doing with their lands? You know, so we prayed, we studied, we wondered, we were going to reach out to them, and it never really happened. And then comes the Nuns and Nuns Land Justice Project. And I'm saying, this is what we were talking about. But we have these young people who are actually doing it. So let's jump in with them. And so I think the land justice, like Jesse was saying, really gives the overarching framework for everything that we're doing, for the relationships that we are cultivating, and the resources, like to do a racial history assessment, to do a study of your lands and who was there and what were the agreements that were possibly there. And the faculty are tremendous. And the support that you get from the land justice team is phenomenal. I mean, just when you're thinking and you have a question, they're emailing you or whatever. But I think coming together with other communities in solidarity and in a manner of support, exchanging ideas, listening to where people are at is key, you know, because it helps to deepen and widen the relationships. And, you know, even though you're doing a lot of things on Zoom, which is great, coming together in person is nothing beats it. Now, we haven't had our land justice, sacred land news stories until it's coming up in a couple of weeks, so in October. So we're really happy about that. But we did have a little teaser, and the congregation is getting in on that, because when we established our land justice team, you know, we were doing it. We were on board with it. We were working and educating our committees with it, but education was the big thing, and trying to bring everyone up to speed and move them along kind of slowed us down. So we're very grateful that it's a 2-year focus community opportunity now. And so, you know, even though we were setting forth goals, we said, well, let's just put that on hold and let's just do some more education, so that when we move together a little bit more in a cohesive way, there'll be a better understanding that people would affirm the direction of any goals that we would set.
Thanks, Joan. If anyone hasn't dug into the story of the Shinnecock kelp farmers on CSJ Brentwood land, it's such an incredible and beautiful story. There's a little blurb on our YouTube channel that we can drop in later, but yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And can I also add to that, you know, I'm happy to see some of our friends here from the Amityville Dominicans, Diane and Elizabeth, because what has happened too is that other congregations on Long Island have joined with us. And they're writing stories about the kelp farmers, which has been tremendous. But what we're now seeing too is within our own congregation is others are getting ideas about land. So, well, what about housing co-ops? How about this? So something is definitely happening, which is good and which is timely, especially as we approach the retreat coming up in October.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna bring Brenna on as well and move us into some Q&A. I know we've got like a pretty rich and diverse group of people, from some of you joining our thinking about becoming a focused community. Some are part of our larger community ecosystem. All questions are welcome. I'm going to first open up and see if there are any questions from sisters, associates, staff of religious communities. Like, how can we answer questions related to your discernment? What questions do you have for us? And then we'll open it up to the whole group.
Brittany, I have a question. Have you worked with any congregations that are primarily urban based? I mean, our properties are primarily urban properties.
That's a great question. I'm doing a scan. We in our first cohort, there weren't any communities whose like mother house or primary property is in urban. Am I wrong, Brenna? Or La Crosse?
Well, I would also say that CSJ it's not primary.
Oh, right.
property, but
Yeah.
Part of that retreat and workshop, we'll be looking at community land trusts, as well as, you also own a rural retreat center. But yeah, so yes, we are.
Yeah, so we have more like rural examples of the primary property being rural right now, but that's absolutely not a prerequisite. And I think it is true that the examples we've done so far in our webinars and stuff tend to lean rural or, toward farming or habitat restoration and these things, but we absolutely need land justice to happen in cities and would be really excited about working with communities in an urban context, and would look forward to learning from you about what questions you're asking, and definitely have technical support partners who have worked in urban settings as well. So yeah, thanks for the question. Other
And
questions?
if you're coming from a community of women religious, and have a question, just feel free to come off mute and ask it. Or if you feel more comfortable, raise your hand. I might not be able to see you if you do it physically, but so coming off mute might be a better bet unless you press the raise hand button.
Sharon, I see you talking. Oh, no, you're talking to, okay. Sorry, you were talking to somebody off screen. Diane.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, and hello to Joan Gallagher there, and Elizabeth, I know you're here somewhere in cyberspace. Our congregation, so we're Dominican Sisters in Amityville, New York, which is on Long Island, and are in a 3-year process creating a conservation easement of it's a small portion, 10 acres on our property. And we're working with a land trust from Suffolk County to do that. At the same time, our farm is in transition from a CSA model to a question mark future, but with hope for the future. And so for me to engage, let's say, even at the start, our leadership team around this question, I feel right now that we've got may not be the best analogy, but a lot of balls in the air.
Mhm.
And my question is, I want to learn about this. I was on your webinar maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Some of the sessions for that around land justice. So that's kind of where I'm coming. I don't know that if we were to take this on, are we, maybe it's a rhetorical question for you, but would it be like just too many moving parts on our plates?
I'm gonna pass that one to Jesse or Joan. Jesse, I see you nodding and ready, so I'd love to
Attention
hear.
over here. So
Yeah, what do you think?
yeah,
Yeah.
Diane, I would say we were in a very similar situation. Our easement had not closed when we entered our year. And we also had a group looking at reparations, and we have all of these different things going on. And what I would say this has done is it's drawn all of that much closer together. So not only are we recognizing the interconnectedness of all of those efforts, but the relationships between the people have been drawn closer together too. And it has actually facilitated some things moving forward, or not. And clarity either way can be really helpful. And so, and I'll say particularly, that was really crucial for our community for that to happen. And it really happened at our retreat here. That was the first time the Loretto community had gathered in person since COVID began. And we just actually canceled our upcoming in-person gathering in October because of COVID numbers too. And so that's back to being virtual. So that one retreat is like the time that our community has been together. And it really, really helped us take those pieces and put them on the same table and bring everybody to the same table and talk about them in the same context and within the same framework. So, I mean, everybody, you know your own community better than anybody else. I've had this same conversation with other communities who have asked about the program. To us, it was a huge benefit to come in when things were already in progress. And to you, it may not be, but for us, it was.
Good. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and just to echo that too, Diane, I think you have a sense that we have a few things going on here in Brentwood too. Yeah, across the island, but it does help to focus things and bring groups together. I think for us, I guess I'll speak for myself. The challenging piece is that it's not my full-time ministry, but something that I believe in and as a committee member want to work towards. And so the onboarding of people, the educating of the community, so that they have a greater sense. And then as they're in it, like with anything we do, as you move along, they get it and they support it and affirm it. But I think for us, I see it bringing all of the moving parts under one wheelhouse, so to say, and connecting them and saying that it is connected and what we're doing here is impacting that and vice versa. It brings some organizing to it. I hope.
Thanks, Joan.
If I could just add one other thing I thought of real quick. I think it also, with the faculty that are available and the examples that you really look at, with everything being in the air, it helps illuminate possibilities that you may not have thought of already, or it gives you connections to people who can help you take an idea further than what you had considered before. When we started our easement process, we really thought, this is it. This is our land thing. We're going to get this easement. We're going to be done. We're going to protect the land. That's it. And this process has really helped us realize, like, we've just dipped a toe into the water. And that was a step of many, many more to come, I hope.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about when we come into this conversation, like conservation and protection from development is so important, and it's a really important element of land justice. And we're here to say, what if that's not the ceiling of possibilities, but actually the floor? And we continue the impulse of conservation by also bringing regenerative work and stewards onto the land to continue the legacy of religious communities. and prioritizing stewards whose time it is, and to whom we are responsible for restoring relationship to land. Other questions?
There was a question in the chat earlier from Saskia. Please let me know if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But Saskia, you asked how a person who's indigenous to Turtle Island, how they could find a team of people from communities of women religious within their neighborhood or region. Is there anything you want to say to expand on that question?
No, I am here in Massachusetts and I've been doing transitional justice advocacy. So reparations falls under transitional justice is the legal term. And I've successfully advocated within the city of Cambridge to move away from racial justice and to move in transitional justice, and acknowledgement that our country is based upon a racial caste system. And that by simply identifying people as Black, we're committing ethnic cleansing. And this is originally based upon American freedmen, who are the surviving descendants of chattel slavery within the US. Here in Massachusetts, American freedmen are simply being identified as race, and we have a large immigrant community. And our American freedmen are not being recognized that we're indigenous to Turtle Island, as well as the continent of Africa. And then to make matters more complex, due to forced human reproduction from chattel slavery in the breeding farms, we are of European ancestry. So we are a group of people who have loss of sovereignty, and we're still property of the government. And we all of our homelands are not, we don't have access to here in the US, on the continent of Africa, or from our European ancestry. We're not recognized as citizens, except within the US, and the homeland is kept away from us systemically. When we did research in the greater Boston area, we find that there's a wealth gap of $8 per American freedman, $12,000 for the Caribbean community, then $247K for white residents. So there's a huge gap going on. And we're really just trying to tease out and separate how our American freedmen becoming the bottom of a racial caste system on which even our Black immigrant communities are being able to step on and continuously oppress. So we are pushing for transitional justice because this is a very complex matter, and helping to educate the public that Black is not a monolith. There's only one race, and it's the human race. And we should not be thinking about each other in terms of Black or white, but rather by ethnicity, so that we can celebrate one another as part of repairing the harm here on Turtle Island.
Thank you.
I've been
go ahead.
like how to connect with people locally here in Massachusetts, as my advocacy work is making change on a legal level as well too.
Thank you. Am I saying your name right? Is it Saskia? Okay, I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and because it seems like it would be great to just be connected more with you and your organization. Right now, our capacity for our program that we're developing is to really cultivate relationships with communities of women religious, and if they are part of our program, then or if there was any in the Cambridge or Massachusetts area, we would certainly want to connect them with you and start building more relationships. I don't know, Brittany, if you have more, but I think it would be great if we could start being in dialogue so we know more about you and your group, and we're able to, if there are women religious communities in your area, then it would be a pretty natural fit for us to be able to reach out to you. I don't know if you have more to add, Brittany.
Yeah, second, appreciate the nuance you're bringing to the conversation. For sure, for sure. Lots I could say about that, but I'll just say appreciate the nuance you're bringing as far as, yeah, I think that I love this language of transitional justice. I think for us, it's like, the real question is, how can transitions of Catholic land be as healing as possible to the harms of colonization and systemic racism, which is a construct and was created by white people to take land. 98% of land on Turtle Island is owned by white people. 98% of private land is controlled by white people and white institutions. 95% of urban, 98% of rural. And so it's like, how can the decisions that we make about land disrupt this myth that we've created about race in order for white institutions to keep wealth and land and extract it, extract labor and life, and land. So anyway, and then just to technically answer your question is the as far as like how do we connect potential stewards to communities who are participating in this? We have a lot of national and local and regional partners that are working in these movements, folks in different, like the New Economy Coalition or Black Land and Power Project or Sustainable Economies Lost. Like there are all these kind of partners that we work with to kind of send out that bat light when we're like, okay, we're coming to Loretto, Kentucky. Like, where are the food justice, the land justice, like efforts there? And so we throw a lot of like research and relationship building kind of upfront to be able to support communities to then connect with potential partners as part of the process. So that would be my like answering the how. And I see another question. Does that answer your question, Saskia? I'm going to move on to Clara in these last minutes. Cool. Thanks so much. Please reach out. I see a question from Clara, or sorry, Brenna, you're running this show.
I see a question from Clara. From the Land Stewardship Project. Cool. You've had some conversation. Well, the project does some land access and transition work with emerging farmers. You've also had conversations with folks from the Minnesota Council of Churches who are interested in working with particularly rural churches around land justice and land transitions through a reparations perspective. And the question seems to be, what kind of learning or resources are there for implementing this kind of cohort model with religious groups beyond sisters, women religious, or Catholic sisters? That is a great question that we've been getting emails about a lot lately. So I'm really glad you brought it up. And Brittany, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
So yeah, for that, we've gotten a lot of emails that are like, can men religious join? Can our Zen Sangha retreat center join? Can our church join? And right now, because of, we're a Canadian religious community, can we join? Which is so exciting. Like, now is the time to be doing this work and building this movement, and that's what we want to hear. As far as this cohort, we are focusing on supporting community, like religious communities led by women, in the Catholic or maybe Christian tradition. We'll see if a Christian retreat center kind of wiggles in or something. We're open to that. And we're prioritizing Catholic women religious. One, because that's who we've been working with. It is a very specific context. Two, women should be leading the work of repatriation. And as women who have access to land and wealth, we can help move things in the direction we want to see. I guess there were only two that I can think of, but yeah. And this is, and as far as like, we're going to focus on the US right now because a lot of our technical support partners and also like our team being based in the US, this is just what we know right now. And we don't want to give support that we're not ready to give. And we're already talking about how this can be bigger next year. Clara, I would invite you and I'm like, we all need to be people working with Christian landowners, religious landowners. We've got to be more coordinated. This should be a bigger movement. Let's keep talking. And then Brenna, if you want to drop one thing that we always have the door open to is our learning platform. We host monthly conversations and webinars. They're all recorded online. We have printed Imagining Land Justice guidebooks that we can send your way that are really relevant to a variety of people. So it's like, we're having public conversations that you're always welcome to come to and explore with us. And we want to see this movement grow, and we want people to Copy us. So yeah, thanks, Clara, for the question.
Thank you. Is there any sort of like coalition space right now or loose like broader learning circle of groups that are doing this work in a religious context?
There is a roundtable that we host around faith and land back. That's probably and that's for people of faith doing like concrete land justice and land rematriation organizing. So that would be a great thing for you to come and check out. And then it's a pretty informal space. Right now we're like, how do we keep sharing the learning, sharing what's happening, sharing, we're all coming up against similar opportunities and roadblocks. So that's a starting point, and we hope that there's more.
Thank you.
So I put that both our learning, so you can website where you can see upcoming public learning events and also information about this informal roundtable. And there's contact information on that website for reaching out to me if you're interested in participating in that roundtable. Would be excited, and we can email about if it is the right fit or not. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to kick it back to the nuns on the call because we really want to support, we put this invitation specifically out to religious communities to like, come join us. The water's fine. And I want to see if in these last few minutes, any questions around like, yeah, what do you need to know in order to take this back to your community and discern applying? I'll give it 30 more seconds. And if nothing comes, I'm going to give Jesse and Joan the last word. So don't say I didn't warn you. If you think of questions that come up, like, does this cost anything? No, no, it doesn't. Or, just anything really. Oh, I saw Sharon come off or on camera. Did you have a question, Sharon? No. Okay.
There's one in the chat though. I'm from a Canadian congregation, so I'm excited about the materials you have, which can start us on a process. So maybe not so much of I don't know if you have a follow-up question, Costanza, but thanks for that. We're in touch with somebody in Canada, someone with the CSJs, who is excited about meeting with us more throughout the year so that a similar program could be translated next year in the Canadian context. We've just started those conversations, but hopefully that will work. And bye-bye, Clara. And we lost Brittany, but
No, I just took my spotlight off.
okay.
Okay,
Oh,
then
great. You are a CSJ.
In these last 2 minutes, I'm gonna kick it to Joan and Jesse. Like, maybe something just kind of light and fun, like what's been one highlight for you in this journey? And any other last words you want to say? I see Jesse nodding again, so I'm gonna have you go first, birthday girl.
So again, I'm just going to come back to connections. That just the experience of being in this program has built so many connections, not just within our community, but beyond our community too. I was at the Land Trust Alliance conference last week, presenting about our conservation easement with the land trust that we worked with. And the very first morning at the optional 7 a.m. grounding outdoor Indigenous-led experience, I look over and Cassandra and Abby, two of our faculty from the Center for Ethical Land Transitions, were right there. And so I got to like hang out with them the whole time. And then in the first real session, this woman gets up and walks out, and I almost lost my mind. It was Tila Troge of the Shinnecock Nation. And I was like over the moon, just meeting these people that I have been seeing on webinars and learning from and have these bonds with now, even though we had never met. I think she was a little overwhelmed when I introduced myself, but
She texted me and said how amazing it was to meet you. So
did she? Oh, good. I just think like developing these connections to constantly remind us that this work is real and it is hard and we are not in it alone. And it is also joyful and it is moving forward. And so like that is just one thing I keep coming back to about these programs are the connections within religious communities and beyond religious communities are helping us see the possibilities that we can help enact. And that is a real joy.
Mm.
It's all
Amen.
about relationships, all about relationships. And, you know, so often, you know, as you get an email from one of the land justice members, they're not the emails that I put off to the side. I usually go right to them, click on them. But I'm amazed, like, it's like, where do they meet these people? Where did they get these resources? And so they're doing a lot of the cultivating of that for us and then putting us in touch with them. So again, the connections continue to go deeper and wider. And what a support that is to move this along.
Mm. Amazing. Thank you so much, Joan and Jesse, for helping us kind of flesh this out and what it feels like in real life. And to all of you for joining. We'll stay on if you have extra questions, but we'll go ahead and end the session here.
Thank